Hello, everyone. My name is Dell. My wife Sonia. We are the Ellises, and today we're going to bring you negotiation tip number 3. Of course, on our last episode, we had, the subject was qualifying. Of course, in selling, we have a process, and I'm going to put the other links of process or negotiation tip number 1, negotiation tip number 2 in the comment section here. So if you missed it, you can go back and refresh yourself or, get caught up. So what's our next step of the negotiation process after qualifying? Well, that's going to be we have to put together our presentation. Now, a lot of people have canned presentations, or I should say canned pitches. I don't care for the word pitches, but most people call them pitches. But I don't call them that because what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out, some things, and based on that information I find out on my potential client or my prospect, I'm going to use that to put together my presentation. So no presentation for me is exactly the same. And I was taught if you treat everybody the same, chances are you're treating everybody wrong. So how do we go about putting together our presentation? That's a great question. Well, we're going to utilize the information we learned from our last negotiation tip, the NEAD process. And we're going to focus on, the E, which was for enjoy of the acronym. And then we got the A, or we're going to say change, and use them both to build our presentation. Now, why would we do that? Well, unfortunately, most salespeople are like the Italian chef, and they just keep throwing features at people, throwing features at people, and throwing features at people, just like Italian chef does, but he's throwing it towards the wall, or I'm sorry, the ceiling. Of course, he knows when it's stick, it's done. And unfortunately, in the sales field, most of it ain't sticking. So we will only want to focus on their WIT, or what's important to them. What's important to them. And how do we find that out is with our need, qualification process. Now we're going to go into presentation. I'm going to give you some examples. So how do we use that? F.A.Q. Now in the first video, you're going to see, I love acronyms, and here we go, okay? So what does it stand for? Frequently asked questions. No. Not in negotiation, it's not. Although we want to ask questions. So we want to talk about the feature, the advantage, and then the questions. Why is this so important, Dal? Wow, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. First of all, you need to understand people do not buy features. They want to buy the advantage and benefits that they receive from your products or services. And of course, the last thing we're going to talk about here is some selling laws to bring this, into action. So you need to write this down, memorize this. This is what's going to put you in the top 2% right here. Never make statements without following those statements with a question or questions. Of course, the only reason to make these statements is to prepare the way for the question. You're going to have to reverse engineering your process, your presentation. And what I mean by that is if I say something, where is this going to take me with my potential client or prospect? Does that make sense? You see, I just did it there, didn't I? Of course, I could keep going on, couldn't I? So you need to understand, no one's going to buy features. They buy the advantage and benefits of your product and services. So let's keep going. So we're going to start off with the F. For example, we got a homeowner, and while we were going through our qualifying process, we found out what they want to alter, and they want to be able to save money on their energy bill. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But we don't want to assume that. So, the home that they're considering has solar. So the typical salesperson says, this home features solar. And, he's expecting, hey, I'm doing this right, I got this going on. But what I was taught a long time ago, over 40 years ago, is whenever you mention a feature and you don't follow it up with an advantage or a benefit, everybody in the room would yell, so what? Now, some people say, it's old school. I don't care if it's old school or new school. What I'm sharing with you works. And I know this for a fact, because this is how you do it. Now, let's follow up with the advantages. So the negotiator, he's going to talk about the advantages. So which means you'll save thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, you're way better than most, and I have to ask you this question, who wouldn't want to save money when they could? Now, if you say, well, I don't care about saving money, I say, well, if you don't care about saving money, it's like throwing money in the trash. I'll take out your trash. So next, we're going to follow it up with a question. So the professional negotiator utilizes the Q or a question and ask, can you see how you'd be able to save thousands of dollars over years versus a home that does not have solar? Powerful. Powerful. Now, I just eliminated other homes, didn't I? They say, well, they might have this going on, they might have going on. That's true. But if his main motivation factor is to save money over years, I'm going to win, aren't I? Now, congratulations, you're now in the top 2%. So, what I want you to remember is the selling laws. People don't buy features. They buy the benefits or the advantages your product or services have to offer. Never make a statement or statements without following those statements with a question. The only reason to make it is to prepare the way for the question. And of course, that's FAQ. My name is Dallas. Me and my wife Sonia are passionate about helping people. We're passionate about changing lives. And we want to thank you so very, very much for viewing our video. Have a great day.